She walked into her own dealership as a customer, only to be insulted and dismissed. But when the truth came out, the tables turned in a way no one expected. Denise Carter was born in a neighborhood where dreams were often too expensive to afford. Her family lived in a small two-bedroom apartment on the south side of the city. Her mother worked long hours as a nurse assistant, and her father was a mechanic who fixed cars in a local garage. Money was always tight, but the love inside their home was strong and warm. Even as a little girl, Denise saw how hard her parents worked just to keep the lights on and food on the table. She learned early that nothing in life would be handed to her. When she was just 9 years old, Denise started helping her father in the garage. She would hand him tools, ask questions about engines, and slowly begin to understand how cars worked. Most little girls were playing with dolls or riding bikes, but Denise loved the smell of oil and the sound of engines. Her father often smiled and said, "You've got the hands of a mechanic and the mind of a boss." She didn't know what that meant back then, but the words stayed with her. School wasn't always easy. Denise was smart and curious, but she didn't always feel like she belonged. She was one of the only black girls in her advanced classes. Some teachers overlooked her, and a few classmates made jokes about her background or her clothes. But Denise didn't let that bring her down. Her mother always reminded her, "They can't stop what they can't understand. You're a storm, baby." So Denise studied hard, helped out at home, and kept dreaming of a better life. In high school, Denise got her first part-time job answering phones at a used car dealership not far from her home. It didn't pay much, but she loved being around the cars and watching how salespeople talked to customers. She listened carefully and paid attention. She noticed which salespeople were trusted and which ones weren't. She saw how customers made decisions. She watched how numbers, emotions, and confidence all played a part in closing a deal. She was just a teenager, but she was already learning the art of the sale. After graduating high school, she was offered a small scholarship to study business at a nearby community college. It wasn't a big school, but Denise didn't care. She took the bus to class, worked evening shifts at the dealership, and studied late into the night. Her life wasn't glamorous, but it was focused. While many of her classmates were unsure about the future, Denise knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted to run her own business, maybe even her own car dealership one day. People laughed when she said it out loud, but she didn't mind. She knew they couldn't see what she saw by the time Denise was 25. She had worked nearly every job in the car sales world: receptionist, junior sales rep, finance assistant, service advisor. She had climbed the ladder one step at a time. Her bosses often told her how impressive she was, but they never quite gave her the promotion she deserved. Sometimes less experienced white male colleagues were chosen over her. Sometimes people assumed she was just someone's assistant, even when she was leading meetings. But instead of becoming bitter, Denise took it all as fuel. Every setback was more motivation. Every unfair moment made her stronger. At 28, Denise got a shot that would change everything. One of the dealerships she had worked at for years was being sold. The owner was retiring, and the business was struggling. Most people saw it as a sinking ship, but Denise saw potential. She had saved some money, took out a small business loan, and convinced 2 private investors to back her. Everyone told her it was risky buying a failing dealership as a young black woman with no family connections in the industry. But Denise believed in herself, and that was enough. The early days were brutal. The dealership had a bad reputation, the staff was unmotivated, and customers were rare. Denise worked from sunrise to midnight. She cleaned bathrooms, fixed internet issues, rewrote training manuals, and even jumped into the service bay when a mechanic called in sick. She brought in new sales staff, taught them her way of doing business, and insisted on honesty, respect, and customer care. Slowly, the dealership began to change. Customers started coming back, reviews improved, sales grew. Denise didn't just fix the business, she transformed it. By her mid-30s, Denise Carter was the proud owner of one of the top-performing car dealerships in the state. Her name was known across the industry. She spoke at conferences, won awards, and was even featured in magazines. But fame didn't change her. She still lived in the same modest house, still drove herself to work, and still walked the showroom floor every morning. Her employees admired her, not just because she was the boss, because she was fair, kind, and sharp as a blade. One thing Denise never stopped doing was going undercover at her own dealership. She believed that the only way to truly understand her business was to see it from the ground level. Every few months, she would dress down in plainclothes, jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie and walk into her own dealership like a regular customer. Most of the staff were in on the act, but new hires usually had no idea. Denise used these visits to watch how people were treated, how problems were handled, and how her team represented her brand. These undercover visits were always eye-opening. Sometimes she saw greatness in an employee going the extra mile for a customer, or a manager handling a tough situation with grace. Other times, she caught small problems, someone showing up late, ignoring a customer, or using rude language. Denise never scolded people in public. She made quiet notes, followed up privately, and always used these moments to teach, not punish. To Denise, leadership wasn't about sitting in an office or barking orders. It was about being present, staying connected, and leading by example. She had worked hard to reach the top, but she never forgot where she came from. She knew that respect wasn't something you demand, it was something you earned, and she had earned it every step of the way. That's why people trusted her. That's why employees stayed loyal. That's why customers kept coming back. Denise Carter wasn't just a CEO, she was a symbol of what was possible. A black woman in charge of a multi-million-dollar business, thriving in an industry that wasn't built for people like her. And she did it all without losing her soul. What Denise didn't know was that her next undercover visit would turn into something bigger than she ever imagined. One that would test her patience, her pride, and her leadership. One that would start with disrespect and end with a powerful lesson for everyone watching. But for now, Denise was just walking into the dealership in her hoodie and sneakers, holding a coffee cup and smiling quietly to herself. She was ready to observe, ready to listen, and ready to see her business from the ground level again. She didn't expect anything unusual that day, but life, as she knew from experience, had a funny way of surprising people when they least expected it. The sun was just beginning to rise as Denise Carter parked her car a block away from her own dealership. She didn't want anyone to notice her arrival too early. Today, she had chosen to wear worn-out jeans, a hoodie with a faded logo, and a pair of plain sneakers. Her hair was tied back in a low bun, and she wore no makeup. She looked nothing like the powerful CEO who usually walked through the front doors with quiet authority. That was exactly the point. Her undercover visits were something she had done for years. It helped her understand the day-to-day experiences of customers and kept her connected to the heart of her business. Her team had grown over the years and she knew most of them well, but the dealership was expanding. New faces joined every month, and Denise had begun noticing changes. Some not so good. She wanted to see it for herself. As she walked through the front door, she was greeted with the usual sounds of a busy dealership, phones ringing, and keyboards tapping, conversations humming in the background. The scent of fresh coffee drifted through the air, mixed with the faint smell of engine oil from the service bays. Denise walked slowly, pretending to browse the showroom. Most of her longtime employees recognized her even in disguise. They gave her subtle nods or small smiles, but didn't blow her cover. They understood the game. Denise appreciated their professionalism and trust. She had trained them to put people first, and they respected her for being someone who never asked others to do what she wouldn't do herself. She walked past a row of sedans, gently running her fingers over the polished surface of a luxury model. She noticed a young salesman on his phone nearby, not paying attention to the customers walking in. Denise made a mental note. She didn't like seeing employees distracted during work hours. A good first impression was everything. As she continued her walk through the showroom, she overheard a conversation at the reception desk. A new receptionist, probably just a few weeks into the job, was trying her best to assist a customer on the phone. She was polite, but clearly nervous. The woman's voice shook slightly as she struggled to answer a question about warranty coverage. Denise listened closely. Just then, a floor manager walked past and snapped at the receptionist for being too slow. His tone was sharp and impatient. "You're supposed to know this by now. he muttered under his breath as he grabbed the phone. From her hand, Denise frowned. That wasn't how she had trained her managers. She believed in coaching, not embarrassing people, especially not in front of others. Another note was added to her mental list. She decided to stay a bit longer and observe the way different staff members interacted with customers. Some were doing well, showing kindness and confidence. Others seemed uninterested, just going through the motions. Denise took her time, pretending to look at cars, occasionally asking questions to see how they responded. A couple of hours passed, and Denise was about to head toward the waiting area when the glass doors opened with a loud thud. Tall, middle-aged white man walked in, his sunglasses still on, his steps loud and commanding. He wore a leather jacket, flashy rings, and carried an energy that seemed to say he expected the world to revolve around him. Denise didn't recognize him, which meant he was likely a new customer. He glanced around, his eyes landing on Denise as she stood near the SUV section, sipping her coffee. His lips twisted slightly as if annoyed by her presence. "Are you done loitering around this car?" he asked her loudly. "Some of us are here to buy." Denise turned her head slowly. At first, she wasn't sure he was talking to her, but the way he stared directly at her made it clear. She took a step back and gave him a polite nod. "I'm just looking around like everyone else," she said calmly. He scoffed, looking. "Doesn't seem like you can afford anything here, sweetheart. Why don't you let the real customers take a look?" A few nearby customers glanced over, clearly uncomfortable. An older couple stepped away quietly. The man walked right up to the SUV Denise had been admiring and examined it like he owned the place. He looked over his shoulder at her again. "Shouldn't you be cleaning the floors or something?" he muttered. Denise's heart beat faster, not from fear, but from frustration. She had faced racism and ignorance many times before, but something about his tone, the assumption that she didn't belong, hit differently today. She wasn't just any customer. She owned this place. But she didn't say that. Not yet. She smiled politely. "You know, this is a great model. Did you have any questions about it?" The man frowned. "Why would I ask you? You're not a sales rep. And even if you were, I'd ask for someone who knows what they're talking about." Just then, a young sales associate walked over. He looked from the man to Denise, unsure what to do. "Can I help either of you today?" he asked. "Yes," the man said quickly. "You can help me by getting this lady away from the car. She's just standing around doing nothing." The sales associate blinked, clearly surprised. Denise looked at the young man and gave him a nod, silently telling him to let things play out. He hesitated, then turned toward the man. "She's just looking." "Sir, she's not doing anything wrong." The man rolled his eyes. "Of course you'd say that. You people cover for each other." Then he turned toward the reception desk and raised his voice. "Can I speak to the manager, please? This place is a mess." Denise stayed quiet, watching everything unfold. A junior manager named Aaron walked over, a clipboard in his hand. He was new, only a few weeks into the job, and hadn't yet met Denise in person. "Yes, sir?" Aaron asked. "This woman is disturbing customers," the man complained. "I don't feel safe with her hanging around the cars. Either she leaves or I leave." Aaron glanced at Denise, unsure how to respond. He looked at the sales associate, who subtly shook his head. But the pressure from the angry customer was heavy. Other clients were watching. Tension was thick in the air. Denise finally spoke. "Is that how you treat customers here?" she asked, looking directly at Aaron. I don't think there's a problem," Aaron stuttered. The man grew more agitated. "This is ridiculous. You people don't know how to run a business. Where's the real manager?" Denise raised her eyebrows. "The real manager?" "Yes," he snapped. "Someone who knows how to handle things properly. This place clearly has no standards." The sales associate, realizing what was happening, stepped aside and whispered to a longtime employee who had just entered the showroom. Within seconds, the word began to spread among the staff. "Oh, she's undercover again," they whispered. "That guy's about to regret everything." Denise stood tall, holding her coffee cup with both hands, watching the man with steady eyes. She didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She just observed. More staff gathered nearby, pretending to be busy, but really watching the moment unfold. They knew what was coming. The man, still unaware, turned to complain again, louder this time. "I've never been treated like this in my life," he shouted. "This is why your kind shouldn't be running things." That was the final straw. Denise gently placed her coffee on a side table. She walked toward the manager's office, disappearing for a moment behind the glass. A minute later, the door opened, and she stepped out, not in her hoodie and jeans anymore, but in a smart black blazer with a name tag pinned to her chest. That read, "Denise Carter, COWO." Gasps echoed around the showroom. The man froze, confusion washing over his face. Denise walked directly up to him, calm and collected. "You wanted to speak to the person in charge?" she said softly. He blinked. Yes." "You're speaking to her," she replied. The man's face turned pale. His mouth opened, then closed. For a moment, he looked like he might say something, but no words came out. Denise continued. "I've been observing everything since you walked in. You assumed I didn't belong here. You insulted me. You disrespected my staff. And you made racist comments in front of customers and employees." People around them stood still, watching closely. Phones were now out, recording quietly. "I built this dealership from the ground up," Denise said, "and I will not tolerate behavior that spreads hate, ignorance, or disrespect within these walls." The man took a step back. I didn't know. I'm sorry." Denise shook her head. "You didn't know who I was? But that doesn't excuse how you treated someone you thought had less power than you. That's the problem." He looked down, embarrassed, his voice suddenly soft. "You're right," Denise nodded, then turned to the staff and customers. "This is why we lead with respect. This is why we stand up for each other. No one should be made to feel small or unworthy ever." The showroom filled with quiet applause. Some staff clapped. A few customers smiled. A tear from her eye, the man quietly turned and walked out of the dealership, his head down. No one stopped him. Denise stood in the middle of the showroom, surrounded by people who now looked at her with even more admiration than before. She had not only shown strengths, she had taught a lesson that would stay with everyone who witnessed it, and the day wasn't even over yet. For a long moment after the man walked out of the dealership, a heavy silence filled the showroom. Everyone stood still, unsure what to say. Some employees looked at each other, unsure whether they should go back to work or stay where they were. The customers, many of whom had witnessed the scene, kept watching Denise Carter as if waiting for her next move. She didn't rush to speak, stood tall, calm, and composed, just sipping what was left of her coffee, as if she hadn't just been insulted and humiliated in front of a crowd. Then, slowly, she gave a small nod to the staff and smiled. "Let's all get back to business," she said. Her voice was steady but warm. That one sentence broke the tension, and people started moving again. The phones rang, deals resumed, and conversations returned to normal, but the energy in the room had changed. Something powerful had just happened, and everyone felt it. Denise returned to the customer waiting area and sat down for a moment, reflecting on what had just happened. She had been insulted, humiliated, and judged by her skin color and her appearance. But none of that was new to her. It wasn't the first time, and she knew it wouldn't be the last. The real reason she had remained silent during most of the exchange was to see how her team would react. Would they defend her, even if they didn't know who she was? Would they support a customer being mistreated? Or would they stay quiet out of fear or confusion? She had seen the answers, and most of them made her proud. The young sales associate had stepped in. The receptionist had stayed professional despite being nervous. Even the junior manager, though unsure, had tried to handle the situation respectfully. Denise made mental notes of all their reactions. Later she would call each one of them into her office and thank them personally for their behavior. But first, she wanted to make one thing very clear to the entire staff. She walked to the center of the showroom, clapped her hands lightly, and said, "Team meeting, right here, right now." It wasn't something she did often during business. Ours, so everyone knew it was serious. One by one, employees gathered around her. Salespeople, receptionists, mechanics from the service bay. Even the cleaners, everyone stood in a wide circle around their boss. Denise looked around the group slowly. Some of the newer staff still seemed shocked to find out that the woman in the hoodie was actually the CEO. A few looked embarrassed that they hadn't recognized her. But she didn't focus on that. "I know today was unusual," she began. "Some of you already know I like to go undercover from time to time. Others just found out. I do it because I believe in seeing things from the ground level. I don't want to lead from a glass office eye. Want to lead with my feet on the floor and my eyes open." Everyone listened closely. Her voice was calm, but her words carried weight. "What happened today with that customer," she continued, "was not just about me. It was about how people treat others when they think no one is watching. That man didn't see a CEO. He saw a black woman in jeans. He made a decision about my worth based only on that." She paused for a moment and looked around. "But here's the truth," she said. "This kind of thing happens all the time. Not just to me. Maybe to some of you. Maybe to people you know. It happens in restaurants, in offices, on the street, and, yes, in dealerships too. We can't control the world outside, but we can control what happens in here." She walked a few steps forward. "I want every single person who walks through these doors, no matter what they look like, what they wear, or where they come from, to feel safe and respected. That is the culture we stand for here. If we allow even one moment of discrimination to slide, we've already lost." There were quiet nods around the circle. Few employees looked down, thinking about their own actions and whether they'd always lived up to her standard. Denise smiled, softening the mood a little. "Now, I know none of us are perfect. We make mistakes. We get tired. We have bad days. But let me tell you this. What matters is how we respond. I'm proud of those of you who stood up today. You didn't know who I was, but you chose to. Speak up anyway. That's what integrity looks like." Someone clapped, then another. Soon, everyone joined in. Denise held up her hands, not for praise, but to bring the group back to silence. "I don't want applause," she said gently. "I want understanding. This wasn't about catching anyone doing wrong. It was about reminding us who we are and what we represent. We are more than just a place that sells cars. We're a team that believes in fairness, kindness, and truth." She took one last look around. "Thank you all for your work today. Let's keep our heads high and our hearts open." The team dispersed, many of them smiling, a few wiping their eyes. Some walked over to Denise quietly, thanking her for the talk. Others went back to work with a new energy. Something in the air had shifted, but not everyone was calm. Back in the manager's office, Aaron, the junior manager who had been caught in the middle, was pacing nervously. He felt ashamed that he hadn't handled the situation better. He hadn't spoken up when he should have. He didn't know who Denise was at the time, but that wasn't the point. Deep down, he knew he had frozen out of fear. He was surprised when Denise knocked gently and stepped inside. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. Aaron stood up quickly. "Of course, please." Denise sat down and looked at him kindly. "You look nervous back there." Aaron sighed. "I was. I'm sorry, Denise. I should have said something. Didn't know it was you, but I still should have stepped in." Denise nodded. "You're right. Should have. But I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to help you grow." Aaron looked confused. "You're still new," she said. "You haven't faced a situation like that before. It's not easy to handle angry customers, especially when they cross the line. But that's part of leadership. It's not just about paperwork and scheduling. It's about standing up when it matters." "I understand," Aaron said quietly. "It won't happen again." "I believe you," Denise said with a smile. "And I want to help you get better. Let's work together. I'll set up a one-on-one leadership session for you. You've got potential, Aaron, but you need to trust yourself more." His face lit up with relief. "Thank you. Really, I won't let you down." Denise stood and gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "I know you won't." After leaving the office, Denise spent the rest of the day meeting with the employees who had stepped up during the incident. She thanked the young sales associate personally and gave him a performance bonus. She checked in with the receptionist, letting her know she had done a good job under pressure. She even walked out to the service area and had a laugh with the mechanics, telling them the full story of what had happened. They loved it. But the story didn't end there. A customer who had witnessed the event had filmed part of the incident. On her phone, without telling anyone, she had uploaded the video online that evening with the caption, "Black woman gets harassed at dealership, then reveals she owns the place." By the next morning, the video had over 2 million views. Social media exploded. People praised Denise for her calm and powerful response. Comments poured in from around the world. News outlets called her dealership asking for interviews. Blogs and business sites wrote articles about her leadership and dignity. Denise wasn't looking for fame, but it found her anyway. She agreed to one interview, not for attention, but to share a message. On national television, she said, "This isn't just my story. It's the story of anyone who has ever been underestimated, ignored, or mistreated because of how they look. I didn't speak up that day because I wanted revenge. Spoke up because I believe in change." The clip was shared again and again. Parents showed it to their children. Teachers played it in classrooms. Companies used it in training sessions. Denise Carter became more than just a CEO. ASIA became a symbol of courage, leadership, and what it means to carry yourself with grace in the face of hate. Back at her dealership, things returned to normal. Cars were sold, oil was changed, papers were signed. But the people who worked there carried something new in their hearts. They had witnessed something real, something unforgettable. And for Denise, it was just another day of doing what she had always done, leading with strength, humility, and the quiet power of someone who knew exactly who she was. Days after the incident with the rude customer, the energy at the dealership felt different. The air was lighter, and the people working there seemed to move with more confidence. Denise Carter had always believed that true leadership meant not just managing numbers or deals, but inspiring people to believe in themselves and in each other. That belief had never been more important than now. Denise made it a point to personally walk through the dealership every morning, greeting everyone by name. Some of the new employees were still getting used to seeing her in her usual CEO attire. But now, many of them also remembered the story about the undercover visit that went viral. It wasn't just a story to Denise. It was a turning point for the entire team. On this particular morning, Denise stopped by the training room where a small group of new hires were gathered. They looked nervous and excited, their faces eager to soak in the knowledge about the dealership and its values. Denise smiled warmly as she entered. "Good morning, everyone," she said. The group responded politely. Denise didn't just want to talk about car models or sales techniques. She wanted to talk about respect, dignity, and how to treat people, both customers and coworkers. She believed those lessons were as important as any business skill. "When you work here," Denise began, "you're not just selling cars, you're creating an experience. You're making someone's day better, maybe even changing their life. People come to us not just because of the cars, but because they want to be treated with kindness and respect." She could see some of the new employees nodding, already understanding what she meant. "Everyone deserves respect," Denise said, "no matter who they are, where they come from, or what they look like. That's a rule we live by here. It's not always easy. Sometimes people will test you. They might say or do things that hurt or confuse you. But remember this, how you respond defines who you are." She told them the story of the man who had insulted her. She didn't sugarcoat it. She shared how painful it was to be judged unfairly and how she chose to respond with calm and dignity instead of anger. The trainees listened quietly, some with wide eyes, others with thoughtful expressions. Denise wanted them to see the real world, how tough it could be, but also how important it was to stand strong. After the session, several trainees approached Denise, thanking her for her honesty and courage. One young woman said, "I never thought about how much respect matters. I want to be someone who stands up just like you did." Denise smiled, feeling a spark of hope. These were the people who would carry the dealership forward. Meanwhile, Denise was also busy working behind the scenes to improve the dealership's culture. She knew that a few harsh words from one customer could affect the whole team's morale. So, she arranged for a series of workshops about diversity, inclusion, and customer service. She brought in experts to teach the staff how to handle difficult situations with grace and confidence. During these sessions, employees shared their own stories of unfair treatment and challenges they face, not just at work, but in life. It was a time for listening and learning. Denise watched as her team grew closer, supporting each other more openly. One afternoon, as Denise was checking on the service area, she noticed a mechanic named Jamal who looked stressed. Jamal was a skilled worker, but he often kept to himself. Denise walked over and asked gently, "Is everything okay?" Jamal sighed. "It's just been a tough week. Some customers have been really demanding and I'm feeling the pressure." Denise nodded understandingly. "I know it's not always easy, but remember, you're not alone here. We're a team and we support each other. If you ever need help, just ask." Jamal smiled for the first time that day. "Thanks, Denise. That means a lot." As the days went by, Denise continued to listen carefully to her employees and customers. She held regular meetings to hear their concerns and ideas. Her door was always open. People appreciated that. One of the things Denise noticed was that some employees felt hesitant to speak up about problems or bad behavior they witnessed. They worried about consequences or being labeled as troublemakers. Denise realized that creating a safe space was essential. She wanted everyone to feel comfortable raising their voices. So she introduced a new anonymous feedback system. Employees could share their thoughts or report incidents without fear. This simple step made a big difference. More people started speaking up, and Denise was able to address issues quickly and fairly. One evening, as the dealership was about to close, Denise was finishing paperwork in her office when she heard a knock. It was Maria, a saleswoman who had recently joined the team. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Maria asked nervously. Of course, Denise replied, motioning for her to sit. Maria took a deep breath. "Wanted to thank you for everything you've done. Before I started here, I was nervous about working at a place where I might face discrimination or disrespect. But after seeing how you handled things and the changes you've made, I feel hopeful. I feel like I belong." Denise smiled warmly. "That means the world to me, Maria. We're building something special here. It takes all of us to make it strong." As Maria left, Denise thought about how far they had come. The dealership was no longer just a place to sell cars. It was a community where respect and kindness were the foundation. Not long after, Denise received a call from a local school. They had heard about her story and wanted to invite her to speak to students about leadership and overcoming challenges. Denise agreed without hesitation. On the day of the speech, Denise stood in front of a crowded auditorium filled with young faces full of curiosity and hope. She shared her journey, the struggles, the victories, and the lessons she learned along the way. She told them about the importance of believing in yourself, even when others doubt you. She spoke about standing up for what's right and treating everyone with respect. The students listened attentively, inspired by her words. Afterward, many came forward to thank her, telling her how much her story had touched them. Back at the dealership, life continued with its usual rhythm, but Denise knew the impact of her leadership was spreading beyond the walls of the business. She was planting seeds of change, not just in her team, but in the wider community. One afternoon, Denise received an unexpected visit from the man who had insulted her weeks earlier. He looked different now, more humble and thoughtful. "I wanted to apologize," he said quietly. "I was wrong about you and everything I said. I didn't realize who you were, but more importantly, I didn't realize how wrong I was to judge." "You like that?" Denise studied him carefully. She could see that he meant it. "Thank you for saying that," she replied calmly. "It takes courage to admit when we're wrong. I hope this experience has taught you something about respect." He nodded. "It has. I'm sorry for the hurt I caused." Denise smiled gently. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after. Let's move forward." They shook hands and the man left the dealership feeling lighter. That moment showed Denise that change was possible. People could learn and grow if given the chance. As the months went on, Denise's dealership became known not just for great cars and excellent service, but for its welcoming atmosphere and strong values. Customers came from far and wide. Drawn by the reputation of fairness and respect, Denise often thought back to the day she decided to go undercover. It had been a simple choice with a powerful impact. She realized that leadership was not about being seen, but about what you do when no one is looking. It was about standing firm in your beliefs, lifting others up along the way. And that was exactly what Denise Carter continued to do day after day, with quiet strength and unwavering heart. Time moved forward, and life at the dealership continued to flourish in ways Denise Carter had never imagined. After the viral video and the strong message she sent to her team and community, the business was no longer just a place to sell cars. It had become a symbol of respect, courage, and leadership. Customers felt welcomed, employees felt empowered, and Denise herself felt proud of the culture she had built. But Denise knew that true success wasn't just about one moment or one viral video. It was about sustained effort, daily choices, and leading by example every single day. She understood that change is a process, not a one-time event. It takes patience, persistence, and heart. One morning, as the sun rose over the city, Denise sat in her office, sipping her coffee and reflecting on how far the dealership had come. She remembered the difficult day when a customer tried to kick her out, not knowing she was the CEO, the anger, the humiliation. Silence, Saul. Those feelings had turned into a powerful lesson, not only for her, but for everyone around her. That moment had sparked something bigger than any car sale. It had sparked a movement toward dignity and quality. Denise's phone rang, breaking her thoughts. It was a call from a large corporate company interested in learning how she transformed her dealership into a thriving business with such a strong and positive culture. They wanted her to speak at their leadership conference, to share her story, and inspire other business leaders. She accepted the invitation, knowing that this was an opportunity to spread her message even further. But before she could prepare, there was work to be done right at home. She needed to ensure her team was ready and that the dealership continued to run smoothly. Back on the floor, employees were busier than ever, but the atmosphere remained supportive and positive. Denise made it a habit to walk around frequently, offering a kind word or a helping hand wherever she saw a need. Her leadership style was not about giving orders from behind a desk. It was about being present, approachable, and involved. One afternoon, a customer approached Denise with a big smile. "I just bought my first car here last week," he said. "I want to thank you for making the experience so welcoming. I felt respected and valued the whole time." Denise smiled back. "That's what we aim for. Everyone deserves to be treated with kindness." The customer nodded. "Your story inspired me. It showed me that leadership is about heart, not just business." Denise felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was why she did what she did, to make a difference in people's lives. However, Denise was aware that challenges would always come. One day, a new customer arrived, hesitant and skeptical. She was an older woman named Mrs. Thompson, who had been disappointed by other dealerships in the past. She wasn't sure she would be treated fairly here. Denise personally greeted Mrs. Thompson and listened patiently to her concerns. She showed her around the showroom, explaining the features of different cars without rushing or pushing for a sale. Denise wanted Mrs. Thompson to feel confident and comfortable. By the end of the visit, Mrs. Thompson was smiling and said, "I didn't expect this kind of honesty and care. Thank you, Denise. I think I'll buy my next car here." Denise felt proud. Every new customer who left feeling respected was a victory. Outside the dealership, Denise's story continued to inspire people. She was invited to speak at schools, community centers, and business events. Her message was clear. No matter who you are or where you come from, you can lead with courage and kindness. You can change the world by standing up for what's right. In one memorable speech, Denise told the audience about the importance of empathy. "Put yourself in someone else's shoes," she said. "Listen with your heart, not just your ears. That's how we build bridges and tear down walls." Her words resonated deeply, and she received many letters and messages from people thanking her for giving them hope and strength. Back at the dealership, Denise continued to nurture her team. She invested in training, not just on sales and technical skills, but on emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. She wanted her employees to grow both professionally and personally. One day, a young employee named Carlos approached Denise nervously. He wanted to discuss a new idea for improving customer service. Denise listened carefully as Carlos explained his plan to create personalized, follow-up calls to customers after their purchase, making sure they were satisfied and answering any questions. "That's a fantastic idea, Carlos," Denise said enthusiastically. "Let's work on making it happen." With support from Denise, Carlos led the project. Soon the dealership saw an increase in customer satisfaction and loyalty. Denise believed in lifting others up. Carlos's success was proof that empowering people could lead to great results. As the dealership grew, so did Denise's responsibilities. Preparing for her big speech at the leadership conference took weeks of hard work. She wanted to make sure her message was clear, authentic, and powerful. On the day of the conference, Denise stood on stage in front of hundreds of business leaders. She shared her journey from facing discrimination to becoming a CEO who leads with empathy and strength. She talked about the importance of listening, standing up for your team, creating a culture where everyone feels valued. The audience was moved. Many came up to her afterward, thanking her for her honesty and inspiration. Some said they would change the way they led their own companies. Denise felt humbled, but also energized. She knew this was just the beginning. Returning to her dealership, Denise found renewed energy to continue her work. She held regular team meetings where she celebrated successes and discussed challenges openly. She encouraged everyone to share their ideas and to support one another. The team had become like a family, united not just by a common goal, but by shared values of respect, honesty, and kindness. One afternoon, Denise received a surprise visit from a young woman named Jasmine. Jasmine was a high school student who had been inspired by Denise's story online. She wanted advice on how to become a leader like her. Denise spent hours talking with Jasmine, sharing stories, lessons, and encouragement. She told Jasmine that leadership wasn't about a title or power. It was about serving others and staying true to your values. Jasmine left with a bright smile and a heart full of hope. In the months that followed, Denise continued to build on her vision. She started a mentorship program within the dealership to help young employees grow their skills and confidence. She partnered with local schools to offer internships and career workshops. Her work was making a real difference in the community. At home, Denise balanced her busy schedule with moments of quiet reflection. She often thought about the journey, how a single day of walking undercover had changed everything. It taught her that courage and kindness could break down barriers and bring people together. She realized that her role as CEO was not just about running a business, but about shaping a better world. Denise's story spread far beyond the dealership. She was featured in magazines, podcasts, and online forums. People admired her not only for her success, but for the way she used her position to lift others up. She received invitations to join boards and advisory groups focused on diversity and leadership. Denise accepted these roles, eager to contribute her voice to causes she believed in. Despite the growing recognition, Denise remained humble and grounded. She never forgot the lessons from that difficult day when a customer tried to kick her out. Instead, she carried those lessons with her. As a source of strength and guidance, one evening, after a long day, Denise sat quietly in her office. She looked out the window at the dealership lights glowing softly in the dusk. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Her journey was far from over, but she knew she was on the right path. She was building more than a business. She was building a legacy of courage, respect, and hope. And that was the greatest achievement of all.